Welcome to another episode of It's My Legacy podcast. I am your host, Legacy, and today's topic is stop pushing people away. Stay tuned.
Will you remember me? Will you remember the way that you felt when you're next to me? Will you remember? Do you remember me? Do you remember? Will you remember me?
Good morning, my loves. It's been quite some time since I've talked to you last. A lot of developments have been happening, a lot of leaps of faith. And a particular leap of faith in my life has brought me back to a subject that I've spoken about in the past with you, and that I've reflected on a lot. So I've said in the past that I tend to push people away. And God has shown me this recently, just as far back as it goes and how I've done it. And I think I was so closed off that I didn't even realize that I was pushing people away. And I had such a false perception of myself that I only saw them, I didn't see me or how I was showing up. And that has changed a lot for me in the very recent time. So yesterday, before yesterday, recently I came back in contact with someone who I hadn't seen since maybe the beginning of this year. And I feel like God led me to this person because that morning I had a vision of them, and then God sent me to them. It's like, no, you need to go to this place. And I'm like, I'm passing up all these these same stores so I can get the same thing done. And God was just like, no, you need to go there. You need to go there. I'm not thinking I'm going to see this person again. I'm just thinking, okay, I'm just being obedient. And so, just like the first time I met them, it was just cool, just a cool, great, amazing person. And so I started thinking recently, how the last time we spoke, this person had reached out to me and I was like, oh yeah, I'm making myself available. And then I shut down. And I don't know if this person knows that I pushed them away. I don't even know if they contacted me after. I think I blocked them. I hate to say it. Oh God, I hate to even admit that. I can't believe that I'm actually admitting that. But I did. And at the time I was in I hate to refer to it as a relationship, but I would rather say a situationship, where I had done something to violate a person's trust. And the moment that this person saw me communicate on the phone with this other person, it was like, well, who is that? And why is this? And what's that about? And and I don't want you talking to that person. And I was like, all right. So I just shut it down. And in that relationship that I had, my shortcomings were used as a way to alienate me from a lot of people and to control me with my guilt, when that person was doing the same damn thing. So I know these are very vague details, but stay with me. And moving forward from that, in a way, the alienation, although I didn't like it, I didn't like not being trusted, I didn't like always being accused of something. Before this relationship, I was alienating myself. It was either I clung to you really hard or I pushed you away. Or the moment you did something I didn't like or that hurt me or triggered me, to reflect something of my past, I'd push you away. I would shut it down. I was the queen of cut off, okay? That song, It Ain't Nothing to Cut a Bitch Off, I was really good at that. Really, oh my gosh, if there was a medal, I'd probably be gold. And it was something at the time that I took pride in, but I didn't realize how much damage it was doing to me in the process. And so lately I've been working on opening my heart, and my heart is a lot more open than it's probably ever been, which is wonderful. But yesterday I had a epiphany. I was fasting, and God was showing me myself and showing me the situation with this person who I blocked. And I was like, oh God, I feel so bad because I don't know if they were trying to communicate with me. And then I saw them again and they were so kind and gracious. And I was like, well, maybe he never tried to hit me up and he doesn't know that I blocked him. Maybe he does. I don't know. But, and it didn't mean that there was anything other than a friendly communication. It's just, it didn't have to be romantic for me to push you away. And even as a kid, as a teenager, I left home, left living with my mother to live with my father. And my dad had this amazing woman in his life who was in my life since I was a little girl. She was actually around before I was born. And she just wanted to be what I needed. And I needed a mom. And her family always treated me well. She always treated me well, was always kind, would always spend time with me. And I pushed her away because she wasn't my mom. And I wanted my mom. And not only because she wasn't my mom, because at the time, my mother and I hadn't spoken for like almost 3.5 years at that time. I mean, not at that time, but we hadn't spoken for 3.5 years when I was a teenager. And I felt like I was a burden, but she didn't make me feel that way. That was me. And anyways, here I am now, all these years later, and it was shown to me yesterday, literally every person that I had pushed away. No, well, let me not say every person I pushed away that I was wrong, because there was some I was like, woof. But God showed me that there were many seasons in my life where he was sending people to me when I was going through something and I would push them away. And he was like, I sent these people to be there for you. And I would shut down. I would always find an excuse. And it forced me to go through things by myself that I didn't have to. And I was someone who was a firm believer that if my situation or my life wasn't where I wanted it to be, then I felt like I had nothing to offer. I felt like, what can I give you if my life is in shambles? And when my life was good or I felt comfortable, those very people were not there because I had already pushed them away. So it was a constant cycle. And I don't like that I subscribe to that idea that you have to be 100% healed or put together to be received and appreciated and loved. But that was the problem. I didn't know how to receive love. And it wasn't until recently that I realized that oh my God, I don't know how to receive love. I know how to give of myself, and I knew how to love from the level of pain that I had experienced, which could sometimes come off overbearing and clingy. I loved from my abandonment. Ooh, that's deep. I loved from my abandonment, and I didn't know how to receive it back. And so when it would come back, it wasn't entering, it wasn't hitting me because my heart was so blocked. And I was then seeking emotionally unavailable people. One, because it was a projection of myself. Two, because the people that were closest to me, my parents, were emotionally unavailable. So their distant emotions to me seemed like love. Like, oh, okay, well, this is what love is, right? And it was painful, but I seeked out pain and chaos because it was what I was used to. It's something I've said in the past where I was so used to surviving, I didn't know how to live. And I was so used to pain that I didn't know what love felt like. Come to find out, that wasn't love that I experienced. That was pain, that was chaos, that was trauma, that was a projection of their pain. And I had to sit with the fact that I've probably hurt people by pushing them away. No, I know I've hurt people by pushing them away, because I've had conversations with people who have told me years later, like, I didn't understand, why you just disappeared, and then dealing with depression, sometimes it was the depression. And I'll be very real with that. Sometimes it was the depression. A lot of times it was. But a lot of times it was my abandonment. So, where are we now? Now we're trying to learn how to let people in. And I didn't realize how terrified I am of that. Letting someone in beyond my control. I can let you in, but if you get deep to the core of me, which is beyond what I control, to see not just my vulnerability, but all of me, like that's scary. That's terrifying. And I feel like it's time. And so I've been trying to be conscious of what I do. Like certain feelings that feel familiar, like if something bothers me, not shutting down, learning to speak up for myself instead of just cutting off. And recognizing that it's okay if you're not where you want to be in your life or you're working towards where you would like to be, and someone shows up, because you don't know how God will use that person for you. I remember when my sister died. This was about 2 years after I had gone through so much between her death, losing my family, losing my nephew. Like, it was so much, y'all. Oh my God. And I had this friend that I knew for years. I'd known him maybe I would say 3 or 4 years. And I had this vision. I didn't know it was going to be him, but I had this vision of someone standing outside of my house where I was living, and there was this black car, and I saw them standing up against the car and telling me how they felt about me and that they were in love with me. And I was like, well, who would that be? Because I don't really talk to anybody. And then a few months later, he reappeared back into my life. And him and another person that I was really in love with had all worked together. And at the time, So the person that we worked with was this guy named Stanley. And the guy's name that had reappeared in my life, his name was Gino. And Gino was just cool, man. He was such a cool person, such a good guy. And we would always see each other at the grocery store. Come to find out, we lived in the same neighborhood. And so he would, give me a ride to my house. So at one point I started like hiding from him, like dodging him. And one day I just told him, I was like, yeah, I've been trying to dodge you. And he's like, why? I was like, because you see me all the time. And I don't know, it was like I just didn't want to be bothered. And to my defense, I was very fragile at that time. When my sister died, the things that my family had done had me so raw emotionally that any little hurt seemed massive to me. Any way that someone made me feel unsafe, I would shut down. And so he had asked me about Stanley because, I was like in love with Stanley at the time and we were friends, and it was just a whole situation. It was a whole thing, y'all. And I would always say I didn't want to talk about it, but that he and I weren't talking, and, that was it. And so there was something about me that I had told Stanley in confidence. He was the only person that knew this. And Gino had told me one day, he was like, I'm going to talk to him. He was like, yeah, because I want to know what happened. And I was like, nah, just leave it alone. Like, I begged him, like, don't go to him. I don't want that to be brought up. Like, I don't want what happened between us to be brought up. So what he wanted to know was why we weren't talking anymore, and what happened with our friendship. And that was a situationship too, child, but that's a whole nother episode. And so one day he tells me in front of my house, just like I saw in my vision, that he was in love with me. Now, I have a nervous laugh, okay? And it is, when I say, baby, I laugh like I'm at Def Comedy Jam on the front row. I mean, cackle, right? But I don't mean to laugh. It's just I'm nervous and uncomfortable. And I've been in some pretty bad situations where I'll just start laughing. And it's not that I find anything funny. It's just I'm extremely uncomfortable. And this poor guy told me how he felt about me, and I laughed. And I laughed for like 30 minutes, y'all. I didn't mean to laugh. I was just so uncomfortable, and I didn't know how to receive it, and I didn't believe him. And I mean, everything he said was so beautiful, but I just didn't believe it. And it was so interesting because how he felt about me is how I had felt about Stanley in the past. So I apologized, and at the time I was going to start film school, so I just used that as an excuse, and I was like, I'm going to start film school. I don't want a relationship right now, blah, 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 blah. And it was kind of sad because he was helping me through, like, being really supportive after my sister's death. Like, I had just gone through so much, and I was trying to move forward with my life and writing my books and started a new job, and he was just really supportive. So fast forward, we talked about it, and he said it hurt. He was like, you might accidentally shoot somebody. It may have been an accident, but it still hurts. Like, I know you didn't mean to react that way, but it still hurts. But I have faith that we're gonna end it together. Here's my smart aleck remark, and very insensitive, but I was like, well, don't hold your breath. And yeah, I said that. I was cold, man. I was so cold. I was like Mr. Freeze from Batman. I was cold. And anyways, fast forward, he communicated with Stanley. So he tells me that he ran into him, they hung out or whatever. And he asked me this question that only Stanley knew. And so I was like, why did you ask me that? And he was like, oh, well, you made it a part of one of your characters in your book. So I was like, no, but the way you asked me was very direct, as though you knew that about me. Like, how did you know that? And he was like, no, I'm just asking. And I knew that Stanley had confirmed this for him, and I was very upset. And I felt that my trust was violated because I told you not to go to him about me. I told you I didn't want you to talk to him about our situation. And then you went to him anyway. And because of what I had experienced with my family, where I was very fragile after my sister died, and I didn't trust anybody. I knew not to trust them. My gut was like, don't trust anybody. And my mother looked me in my eyes and told me, it's okay. You can trust me. I'm not going to let anything happen. And she was the one who took a freaking machete and axed me. Like, she didn't just stab me in my back, honey. She stabbed me in my front. She just, oh my God, took my heart out. And so I was like, if I can't trust you, my mama, who can I trust? So the moment that anyone did something that made me feel unsafe in terms of like, oh, I can't trust you. You said you weren't going to talk. I told you not to. You said you weren't going to, and then you did it anyway. And that bothered me. So I pushed him away. I did what I did with everybody else. I blocked him. I stopped talking to him. It wasn't until years later that I communicated with him and apologized again. And he said he understood, and I was just like, I was going through a lot and all of these things, all the things. And so it bothered me because recently I thought about that and I was like, this was a really great guy. And at the time of me using film school as an excuse, I was working a full-time job and going to school at night and on the weekend. And I was doing it all on the bus. My days were like 15-hour days. And I made it work. I threw myself into it. It brought me joy. But I was like, damn, I didn't have to go through that by myself. He would have supported me through that. And then on top of that, dealing with, so I was working a full-time job. I was working at ADP. Then I was going to film school in South Beach. Plus I was writing a book. So I was doing all of that at the same time. I was just completely engulfed in what I was doing, that there was no time, but you make time for what you want. And I feel like he would have been patient with my process. And I was like, And so fast forward to now, and I've still done that. I've pushed people away who have wanted to get close to me. Having the gift of foresight is a blessing, but it is a huge responsibility. And a lot of relationships, I can foresee them happening before they happen. Or because I'm an empath, I can feel your energy. I can feel, sometimes I don't know when people like me, but let me not say I don't know when they like me, because I definitely know. But sometimes I don't know if they feel more for me than a platonic thing. Sometimes I'll get that feeling, and then I'll be like, nah, they're not feeling that. Girl, you tripping. You're thinking of yourself a little high, And I get scared, and my fear has been that I'm going to have to give you up at some point, or that I'm going to lose you at some point. And so then it was pointed out to me, honey, them abandonment issues are ruling your life, and you're going to have to do something about that. My sister, for me, was my big love. My sister was more than my sister. She was my mother. She was my best friend. She was my cheerleader. She was my person that I argued with up and down the road, honey. She was my sparring partner. Like, she was just everything. When she was alive, I would tell her these ideas I had for stories, and the excitement and the validation that she gave me was the equivalent of having 1 million people read my book. Like, it was like, oh, okay, I don't need to write it because the validation that you're giving me is enough. It filled a lot of voids. Our relationship was so tight. I have about 7 siblings, 6 other than her, excluding her. And I didn't feel the need to get to know anybody because I was like, well, we're not that close. There's been so much time that has passed that I was like, well, we can be cool. But I got my ace boom coon right here. So, I didn't really make an effort. Not because they didn't matter, but just because I felt that there was such a distance and emotionally and through age gaps that I was just like, all right, whatever. I got her, I'm good. We all related, but this one right here, this is it. When she died, it was like 7 different, how everyone plays a role in your life and everyone's relationship is different. It was like 7 different relationships in one person. It was my big love. It was my mother. It was my bestie. It was my sister. It was my counselor. It was my cheerleader. It was everything. It was my disciplinarian. It was everything taken, gone. And it broke my soul. I had an idea that it was going to happen 2 years before, but when it happened, it was still shocking to me. And recently I went for a walk and God was, showing me, you're thinking about all that you lost, but you're not thinking about what you gained. And I'm like, you know what, that's true. Like, I got to spend her last Thanksgiving and Christmas with her. And her last New Year's. I got to, did I spend New Year's with her that year or did I go out? I don't remember. But I got to, there was nothing left unsaid. How I felt about her, how she felt about me. There was no rock left overturned. There was, people in my family can't say that. And it was pointed out to me by God, like, baby, you are the only person that can say there was nothing left unsaid. Everybody else, even her own child, can't say that they got to say goodbye. You got to say goodbye. And I was like, dang it, that's so true. I got to say goodbye to her. Literally the last night I saw her alive, which was a Sunday, and she died on a Wednesday. And I told her, I'm not going to be seeing you guys for a while, but I'm going to miss you and I love you. And, I'll be back around. And she was like, well, where are you going? And I was like, well, I'm going to be starting school soon. At the time, we lived like 45 minutes away from each other. And I was just like, I'm going to be consumed with school. So, but I'll be back for Thanksgiving. I'll bring a pie because I'm not cooking, but I'll come back. And we talked about her birthday that was coming up in the following month and if she was going to go to a casino. But I got to tell her goodbye. And that is a gift because as hard as her death had been on me, God was so gracious to not only give me the time, but to heal anything that needed to be healed. And my fear with moving forward with people and fully letting them in. It's like even when I've let them in, I didn't fully let them in. I see that now. Because of the fact that I literally would have this fear like, oh my God, they're going to die. Or I'm going to die. Or something's going to happen that takes me away from them. Or it's going to come up where there's a season and God's like, this person's season is up in your life. You have to let them go. And like just all these fears. I don't even like confessing these fears out loud, but I feel like in order to take a grasp of your fear, you have to sometimes acknowledge it and break it down and see it for what it is and not the shadow of what it is, because sometimes our shadow can be bigger than us. And it's scary. And walking for me, used to be smoking weed, brought me a lot of epiphanies, but walking for me now brings me a lot of clarity. And it was just brought to me like, honey, you can't let your fear of losing stop you from living. Let me say that again, baby, because that's a word. You cannot allow your fear of losing to stop you from living. You're still here. My sister didn't make it to 30, and I'm at 34, which I didn't even think I was going to make it to 30. I was so afraid of not making it to 30 because she didn't make it to 30. And I've been so afraid of loving and allowing people in because I was afraid of losing. And then there's this whole concept of forever. You know, in relationships, I've always wanted to just be with one person forever. That was my dream. Was like, I want to be with one person and we be together forever. And, you know, I didn't want to do the whole dating around or and then I just realized recently, what if forever doesn't exist? Like there's eternity, but forever, in my opinion, kind of equates to a legacy. And a legacy remains when it's not forgotten. Ooh, come on, word. Come on, word. I'm dropping gems. I hope you're picking them up. So it's like, you may not be with that person forever, whatever forever looks like. But the legacy of the relationship is what matters most. What did you gain from it? And gaining something can just be seeing more of yourself. It could be the experience of joy, of reflection, of honesty, of whether it be from that person or whether it be from you seeing more of who you are, whether it's for what needs to be changed or what needs to be embraced. We have to stop selling ourselves short and cutting ourselves at the knees. I just recently spoke to someone and he said, this person that I recently ran into that I was telling you guys about, and he was like, yeah, don't self-sabotage yourself. We were talking about something and I was like, yeah, we're good for that, aren't we? And listen, if there was a self-sabotage, I know it has to be in Webster's dictionary. They just need to call me for my picture, okay? Because I'm telling you, I've mastered that, and I don't want to anymore. I don't want to do that anymore. Why don't I allow myself the freedom to just experience without expectation? Sometimes it may last a day, it may last a week, it may last a month, it may last a year. It may last longer than that. But if I can remove the expectation of what I want it to be, I take the shackles off of God. I take the shackles off of the possibilities, limitless, infinite possibilities. Because it's no longer controlled or consumed by my mind. I can only accept or love based off of, people love off of their experience, off of how far they're willing to give. Well, I am still healing, so there's not really, it's not a whole lot I can give, but I can give what I can give, right? So if I'm putting expectations on things, then I'm kind of shrinking because I'm shrinking possibilities. I'm putting a stronghold on it because of the fact that I can only see but so far because of my own experiences. It's like doing something you've never done. In order to have something you've never had, you got to do something you've never done. But how can you set an expectation for something that you've never fully experienced? Then there's limitations on it. I hope this is making sense. I hope I'm articulating this the way that I'm feeling, because I'm trying to be as clear as possible to say, if you've never experienced what you're trying to get to, and you walk in with an expectation, that expectation is limiting the possibilities of experience, beautiful experiences that can come, but they're now kind of limited, because you can only see but so far. You can only see through your own experiences and your own hope. Don't try to control things so much that you limit the possibilities. Remove the expectation, the fantasy of what you hope it would be, and allow it to just be. Allow yourself and your life and the relationships in your life, platonic or otherwise, to flow freely. Be in flow. If you're in flow, you have water even flows over rocks. If water is in flow, it's gonna flow, baby, and it's gonna go over anything. I remember watching something about Tao, and it says water is the most powerful resource there is, because it can rot and break down the most powerful material, the most powerful metal. If it can flow over a rock, it can, water is unstoppable. But it also adjusts. If there's something blocking one path, it'll flow to another way. It's powerful. Be like water. Be in flow. And I know that that's scary when we've been hurt or disappointed. Even with following our dreams, I have stopped and gone and started and stopped and picked up and stopped and been stopped and had so many blockages. I've had so many times where it felt like I was on the verge of making it, and then the rug was pulled from underneath me. It takes courage to keep going when you've been not only knocked down, but rolled through the rocks and down the mountain. But you're deserving of that. You're deserving of joy and love and happiness. And all of those things come with sacrifice, but also with hurt, with pain. It's like yin and yang. It's necessary. Joy and pain are both equally important. They both strengthen you. When you have the pain and the joy comes, you remember the pain, but you remember the joy gave you hope. You remember the hope that came for the joy, and then when the joy presented itself, how you endured, it strengthens you. How you made it through that pain strengthens you. You're stronger. It activates something in your spirit. Sometimes we're afraid to follow our dreams because of the times that we tried and it didn't work out the way we wanted, or it's taking so long. But that long suffering is not in vain. It serves a purpose, and it strengthens you along the way. It gives you that backbone that you may have not had when you first started. There's power in the pain. There's power in the loss. Most importantly, the power is the purpose in it. The purpose gives you power to proceed. Oh, it's another word. The purpose gives you power to proceed, which means there is power in your pain because there is purpose in your pain. Somebody get a collection plate, honey, because it's a word going on right now, okay? So I say all of this to say, whatever it is that you are pushing away, whether it is your true authentic self, which that was something I also had to identify, accepting that I'm pansexual and accepting my faith and knowing that I am loved, loving me and not ridiculing me. A lot of times the criticism didn't necessarily come from outside. It actually came from me criticizing myself and not allowing myself to that freedom. So whether it's you not acknowledging who you truly are, whether it's you not acknowledging how you truly feel for someone, whether it's you having fear to live in that, or even to admit it, or even to profess it, or just to let someone in or let someone close to you because you feel you should be at a certain place in your path, or that you're not ready or you're not worthy. You are worthy and deserving at every stage of your journey to be seen, loved, appreciated, cared for, understood, and somebody to stick beside you. You deserve that. You deserve that. And to be corrected. You deserve that. And it's okay. It's okay to be afraid. But fear is to kick you into, fight or flight. Fear is to help you. It's like when you're afraid, you know that, okay, fight or flight, you know how to survive. You know what to do to kick into gear. But fear is not meant to hold you back. My therapist told me years ago, put fear in its place. Fear is not meant to hinder you. It's meant to help you. Don't let it hinder you from life and from love, whether from loving every part of yourself and being kind to yourself, or loving every part of someone else and being kind to them and showing grace on both ends. Stop pushing people away because you're afraid of what the other side of that relationship will look like. Whether you're in it, out of it, hurt by it, or remaining in it happy. Sometimes people are afraid to be happy because they're afraid they're going to lose that. People being me. But we not living like that no more. Because we deserve some doggone happiness. I had to realize I'm worthy and deserving. So, if there's anybody out there that has some feelings for me that wants to tell me, please let me know. I'm opening my heart to receive it, okay? Don't be afraid. You are good enough. Tell me, call me, put it in the comments, okay? We are opening our heart right now to receive and to give. And because I recognize what I've been doing, I can present myself and say, listen, this is how I've been showing up, but I'm working on it. And no relationship is perfect. Perfection is an illusion. But something being worth it, that is real. And you are worth it. I am worth it. We are worth it. We are worth the experience. We are worth the leap of faith. So now, jump. You'll land. You will land. Well, that is it for today's episode of It's My Legacy podcast. Honey, there was a whole lot of gems being dropped today. Goodness gracious. Come on, Spirit. Come on, Holy Spirit. Oh, wow. It was so lovely to speak with you. I thank you so much for spending time with me and receiving what I am dropping today. I hope we meet again like this. And until next time, my darlings, thank you so much for tuning in.